and welcome to Magic by Design. If this is your first time listening, thanks so much for stopping by. We are delighted to have you with us. Come along with us as we watch and review every theatrically released Disney animated feature film. In each episode, we watch a classic Disney movie, then we talk about it, and there's even a little song in the end. Everything you could want from a Disney-themed podcast. This week we watched Disney's 34th animated feature, the Ho-Ho Hunchback of Notre Dame. But before the bells of Notre Dame ring, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Ken, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, brother Garrett. Garrett, how are you?
More like before the carol of the bells of Hunchback of Notre Dame's ring.
You shook your head at my pun.
At your
and then you came up with that trash.
Your ho-ho-ho was mediocre, whereas I'm like carol of the bells is a Christmas song that ties everything together.
How's your wig pin?
Fine. 1 second.
Ow. Ow.
Oh, it's not a mask.
Garrett, that's a deep pull.
Yeah, it's also a visual gag for a podcast medium. In case you didn't understand what just happened there, because there's a scene in this film where someone pulls on Quasimodo's face and realizes he's just that ugly. I pulled on Ken's beard to reveal that he's not in fact wearing a mask, but he is actually he looks like that. That's his face.
Well, Gar,
I'm so nice.
I'm going to get the last laugh here because I have written in the script, pause for Gar to burn me and liken me to Quasimodo.
I believe that's not getting the last laugh, though.
Well, Gar, if I hurt myself, then you can't hurt me.
But I hurt you before you even had the chance to get there. I just went straight for it. It's Christmas and I've done this to you. Santa isn't. No, the Tesco ad said you can't be bold this year, so everything is fine.
Yeah, there's no naughtiness this year and Gar's taking it to heart.
I'm sick of those ads. I'm sick of all these COVID ads. All of them. They're not worse than COVID, but they're up there.
Like, if it's not like, in these uncertain times, it's been a tough year. Or like, look how sound we are. Look how cool we are. We know you've had a tough year. Buy some mince pies or something.
Just shut up and make an ad. You know?
Yeah. Because like
these difficult times.
We really need to escape, when we're watching TV and like avoid thinking about the garbage fire that has been 2020.
Endless, relentless part of the world. No, the state of the world is in regardless of years. People are always like, no, 2020 is going to end. Everything's going to get fine. It's not. It's just the way the world is now.
Yeah, but when I watch TV, I don't want to be reminded of it constantly.
Endlessly. And that's not going to be... It's like, Tesco acknowledged the COVID existence. I'm going to go to Tesco for my Christmas turkey. It's like, who's going to think that?
Tesco have had a tough year too. They're like me.
Yeah. Relatable. Brands. Buzzwords. Christmas. There's no Disney Christmas movies. It's upsetting. Well, there is. There's plenty of straight-to-DVD ones.
There's that Christmas Carol one, and there's... I remember having a tape as a kid. It was like a package film, but for Christmas.
So, yeah, there's plenty of, the Christmas shorts and the Christmas DVD films and VHS films. And I guess, Frozen? It's not a snow.
Garrett, Frozen is in a category that we talked about the other day in that it's not explicitly about Christmas, but it's associated with Christmas because of the themes.
Yes. So it's like Die Hard, which actually is set at Christmas. Hook, which is also set at Christmas, but still.
But not Christmas movies, but they are. And there's another subcategory of films that are always shown at Christmas, have nothing to do with Christmas, but I associate with Christmas, like Titanic. It's always on Stephen's Day.
All of the Harry Potter films.
Yeah.
There's a tradition, because our Christmas tradition is we go up to our aunts and we all have a nice Christmas together, which won't happen this year because the state of the world, but usually every time we go up, traditionally, there's just a Harry Potter film on TV, because of course there is.
And you watch it for 20 minutes before dinner.
Yeah, and they show nothing else during Christmas. And then, to be fair, there's usually Christmas scenes in Harry Potter, so it does somewhat work, because Harry Potter films usually span a year and usually have some things happen at Christmas. But nonetheless, it's not a Christmas film.
It's not.
And none of these are Christmas films. There's Christmassy sections in some of the package films, so maybe those count. I don't remember which one the Christmassy scenes is in. I remember that one where they're skating on the lake. Remember that one?
Make Mine Music, I think that's in.
You're just randomly guessing. You have no idea.
I could be wrong.
It could be any of them, but yeah.
They all meld together, to be honest.
There is some Christmassy elements in some of those films, so perhaps you could watch those. And I don't think any of the others are set at Christmas, so...
Well, technically, Muppet Christmas Carol is a Disney movie now.
That's not a Disney animated feature, Ken. That's not within the remit of this podcast.
I recant my statement.
Yes, but Muppet Christmas Carol is a tremendous film, and One More Sleep to Christmas is one of the better Christmas songs, full stop. There's something in the wind today. It's good for everyone.
Care stop there before we get sued.
Oh yeah, Disney will take us down due to my wonderful singing version of A Muppet Christmas Carol.
Cara, you were coming quite fresh to this movie this week.
I have never seen this movie. I have no cultural reference for this movie. I don't know any of the songs. I don't particularly know the characters, and I don't know the plot. So I was like, oh, this is all new. This is one of the Disney 90s films just completely and utterly eluded me.
I, on the other hand, this is one of my very favourite Disney movies, and one I return to very often because it sits proudly in my DVD collection.
Oh, yes. Okay, we're going to get straight into it. Does it hold up? Oh, no, it doesn't.
I really related with Quasimodo.
Understandably.
As a pause for Gar to burn me.
There you go.
I think its songs are very underrated. And when I was a kid, our family won the lotto. You remember that?
Well, we didn't. Our extended family won the lotto. And we were not part of the lotto winning syndicate. So we're just on the outside looking. We got a PlayStation out of it. So
yeah. And my aunt, who's my godmother, gave me £50 as it was at the time because she was one of the syndicate winners, and I used a good chunk of it to buy a Hunchback of Notre Dame branded dressing gown and slipper set, which I had for many years, and I enjoyed.
Which I do remember.
Yes. I think I'm watching it differently, of course, now these days. I'm watching it with a more critical brain. I do have a soft spot for it still, and I will defend it, but at the same time, there are issues.
It's fine. I think it's fine. Is like it's right there at Pocahontas. It's basically the same level of quality as Pocahontas with one less great song, and it's probably less interesting on the whole as Pocahontas. But yeah, it's fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I think it's middle of the road Disney.
The idea to adapt The Hunchback of Notre Dame came from the development executive David Stainton in 1993, who was inspired to turn Victor Hugo's novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame into a feature film after reading the classics illustrated comic book adaptation.
So he didn't actually read the book itself?
No, there's a series of comic books, and they're really nicely illustrated actually, but they transfer classic tales or classic books into a comic book format.
Were those comic books directed toward children?
Yeah, I'd say young adults, children, yeah.
So yeah, it's where you get like Victor Hugo, let's make it for kids.
Let's water it down somewhat. Stainton then proposed the idea to Jeffrey Katzenberg, who greenlit it. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was released in June 1996 to generally positive reviews and commercial success, grossing over $325 million. That's 540 in 2020 Buckaroos, and became the fifth highest grossing film of 1996.
It's kind of up there with Pocahontas as a film Disney don't acknowledge much, isn't it?
Yeah, and again, I know maybe I'm reading too much into this, but the ones that they really take ownership of and hold up there as like the top tier ones, they put the newer Disney intro in front of. This was another one they did not.
So you don't see Quasimodo much places, you don't see Esmeralda much around.
Yeah.
So they very much cornered this one off. They made a sequel.
Yeah.
Which of course they did. It went straight to DVD. Are they remaking it yet?
Yeah, they are.
I was going to say, this seems like prime remake. Unlike Pocahontas, which they might have some issues trying to remake, this one they can just literally remake. Though this film is, at its core, a film about a man who gets so horny for somebody, he burns down Paris. So that's quite fun.
We'll get there, Gar, but that's basically the takeaway from this film.
Yeah, horniness. The woes of being horny on Maine. Or maybe it's internalizing. Maybe actually the message of this film is to be horny on Maine. Because, like, the issue here is that Frollo internalizes his horniness.
And represses his feelings.
He represses his horniness. And then as a result, it comes out as like contempt for people and anger and fire, mostly. So maybe the message here is to let the horniness loose. And we can all live happily in our free, horny lives.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you think too much about, people who are religious, they think about all their actions and, the afterlife and being pious. And I think people just drive themselves a bit crazy because, and that can come out as different things. Anxiety, it can come out as fear, but it can also come out as anger as well.
Yes, and raging, burning fire. Like, literally, Frollo's big song in this film is about how horny he is. He's like, I'm so horny for Esmeralda, but I can't do anything. And she's a seductress, and it's all her fault for seducing me with her.
So she must die now.
Yeah, so I must burn Paris down till I find her, and then offer her the single choice of death or being with me. That's what his song is about.
Gary, you won't be surprised to hear that in October 1993, the production team on the film went to Paris for 10 days, three of which they worked.
Of course. Wasn't this the same team that did Beauty and the Beast? Same directors.
Yeah, and Don Hahn worked on The Lion King, as far as I remember.
So, Beauty and the Beast very, French-inspired as well, wasn't it?
Of course, set in France.
Set in France. So they're basically it's another France movie. You guys take it. Run with this ball, this French ball. You're the only people who can make French movies. It's Gary Trout Trousdale and Kirk Wise, who are the co-directors who also directed Beauty and the Beast.
By accident.
Yes.
In fairness, Gar, they'd made the most of their 3 days, devoting it to exploring Notre Dame, including a private tour of rarely glimpsed sights and actual passageways, stairwells, towers, and a hidden room within Hugo set his actions. So all that stuff actually exists.
Well, it used to.
Yeah.
Until Notre Dame burned to the ground.
They also visited the Palace of Justice and a location thought to be the original location of the Court of Miracles, which apparently existed.
Yeah, because like Victor Hugo's books weren't biographical, but they were certainly set in the real life events of France. But it is interesting to watch this film that has such a focus on Paris burning, and then Notre Dame actually burned down.
Perhaps it was prophetic, Gar.
Yeah, it's foreshadowing. It's quite sad that a major landmark. How much of it burned? Did it like fully burn to the ground, or like?
No, not like fully burned to the ground, but major damage.
Yeah.
In the tens of millions, apparently.
Apparently, one of the Assassin's Creed games is going to be integral in helping rebuild it, because like the amount of intricate detail they went into modeling it in their game, basically it's like just a digital version of Notre Dame that's like true to life and so close to the real thing that they can use it to help reconstruct how it looked in the first place, which is quite fascinating. Maybe they can do that here. Maybe because they're like Mickey Mouse heads in the archaeology of Notre Dame, and I was like, is that actually in the building, or is it just a little Easter egg that they put these 3 circles that look like the Mickey Mouse head?
Or since we've been watching these movies week after week, you're just seeing things that are not there.
Well, to bring it back to Kingdom Hearts, in which I don't think I haven't actually checked about the Kingdom Hearts representation of Hunchback is. There's some of it, I think. But there's a thing in Kingdom Hearts 3 where they hide a bunch of Mickey Mouse heads in the worlds, so you have to take pictures of them. And maybe that's it. Maybe I'm trained to see Mickey Mouse heads in Disney properties now because of Kingdom Hearts.
My main takeaway from the animation of this film, Gar, I said this yesterday when we watched it, I think the animation has become somewhat homogenized in the mid-90s, in the sense that it looks great, but it's kind of soulless in a way.
Yeah, it does look very good. There's a uniformity to how these films look now. Even when they're set in France, or set under the sea, or set in Africa, or what did we watch last week? Pocahontas, set in the Virginian woods of the 1700s or whatever. Whenever that film was set, I actually have no idea now that I mention it. Yeah, it all looks the same. It all has that single animation style. They very much have a house style that this is what Disney films look like, which is what kind of fascinated me about the early films, because they didn't really have that. It's like they had certain elements of it, but like films like Aristocats would look distinctly different from Sleeping Beauty for a variety of reasons. But when you watch, say, Pocahontas back to back with Hunchback of Notre Dame, it's like, oh, these films are made by the same people. They very much have a house style of animation now.
Yeah, and I think it's like it removes artistic expression, because to your point, Lady and the Tramp had a very specific looking style, and so did 101 Dalmatians. I didn't always like it, but at least it had its own distinct identity, where these become kind of melded together. Important
update, and I've googled it. There's a Hunchback Kingdom in Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, which I played, so that's the reason I'm not aware. But there's a whole kingdom, there's a world, so there you go.
Very important, Carol. We've gotten Aristocats, we've gotten Kingdom Hearts. Do you want to get...
Oh, Black Cauldron? You should watch Black Cauldron and revel in its mediocrity.
Okay.
As you have every right to do, and as Disney will not suppress our right to.
Job done.
As far as they don't put a warning on Disney Plus, it's like, you click on Black Cauldron to watch, and they're like, you sure?
And then you say yes, you're like, you sure you're sure?
Really?
And then you click yes, and then it puts on Little Mermaid. There was some innovation in this film. During early development, Truesdale and Wise realised that they needed crowds of people. Now, in the past, they had done crowds, but they were static backdrops. So they recalled the wildebeest stampede in The Lion King. We talked about that, in which they created multiple character models, which, were pre-designed to go in different patterns, and then they cel-shaded them to make them look like traditional animation. They used a similar technique here. For that reason, the CGI department, headed by Kiran Joshi, I imagine a Japanese fellow, created the software Crowd to achieve this new software for this movie, Car. To achieve large-scale crowd scenes, particularly for the Feast of Fools sequence and the film's climax. The software was used to create 6 types of characters, male and female, either average in height, fat or thin, different kind of body shapes, and each was assigned 72 specific movements ranging from jumping to clapping. So, when they're all mixed in, like it
looks like a real crowd. It doesn't look like the same, like 3 animations side by side.
Yeah, but if you look really close, you can see repetition.
Yeah, it's not like looking at the crowd in like Mario tennis games where it's like the same 3 toads going, hello, doing their same 3 toads animations.
Yeah.
So, yeah, actually, the 3D in this film, I think, looks better than the 3D in any of these films I've looked so far.
Yeah, and Pocahontas, they put it in weird places, like the boats where they stuck out, where, like, I had a note here, the 3D bells look fantastic in the opening of this film and throughout.
Like, even that scene where, like, he's swinging out amongst the crowds and you see the actual crowds in 3D and you're meant to see the technology, and it's like, oh, that actually looks pretty good. And this is, as you forgot to mention last week, this is in the age of Toy Story.
Yes.
So, like, Toy Story is a real thing that has been released.
Released in 1995, around the same time as Pocahontas.
So, like, this is an era in which 3D animation was hitting its stride and, like, becoming a real, like, not just a side attraction they shove into, like, 15 frames of their films. It's like, this is a real new genre of animation. So, by the time we get to Hunchback of Notre Dame, people know how to do it really well.
Yeah, like, there's some scenes where he's scaling the building or escaping the building, or towards the end of the climax where he's swinging to save Esmeralda. It looks really great. The 3D cameras, like, pan around him, and, like, it gives a sense of life and vitality to it that you wouldn't have seen before.
Yeah, and like it still has some of like the metallic quality. Doesn't get all the way there, but I think it's a lot more organic looking than it was, say, in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, and it's strange. It is more organic looking, but it sticks out to me way more now that we're watching these films back to back.
Yeah.
Like, I would never have noticed that before, but they really do kind of pop out at you.
Because like we watched these films originally around the time they were released. These were our first reference points for what these films should look like. So when they were 3D scenes, it didn't really pop out to us. But because we watched all of these films in a row, we have all the 2D, 3D. So like, oh, look at this new stuff.
Yeah, so it does pop out at you because we are watching with that kind of critical eye. Gar, as we said, this is based on the 1831 novel of the same name by Victor Hugo. I have a note here, it's not really related, but it's interesting that for a long time this was Hugo's most popular and famous work, especially in pop culture, but has since been overtaken by Les Mis.
Frollo, Javert, same character.
Pretty much.
They're like literally both men devoted to their job who used the like justification of faith to a degree to justify doing really horrible things, and then eventually realize. Actually, no. Well, Frollo never realizes he was in the wrong. My favorite thing about Javert is he's like, "Has my conviction been threatened? Has my life been a lie?" And then he kills himself.
Oh well, better kill myself.
Like his entire worldview crumbles, and he's like, "Well, that's it. There's nothing left."
I've seen the 1998 film with Liam Neeson, and I've seen the musical film, and his suicide comes out of nowhere in each film, and it's just very off-putting and jarring.
Well, you see, he committed his entire life to chasing Jean Valjean, who he believes is a horrible criminal who deserves to be put away, and then he discovers that might not be the case. So he has lived a lie, Ken, for his entire life and kills himself.
Fair play.
Frollo at least could learn that lesson.
While we're on the subject of Frollo, Gar, they're really pushing boundaries for a Disney animated film in terms of the motivations and actions of Frollo. They changed his role from archdeacon to a judge to avoid the wrath of churchy types. It didn't work.
The church is kind of like portrayed in this film as this pure thing who is the only good in the city of Paris. Like the priest is like the most good character you get in this film, who like saves Quasimodo from being thrown down a well and gives Esmeralda sanctuary, and generally is considered the probably the best character in terms of like how the characters present good and evil. He's the good to Frollo's bad. So like, yeah, they gave most of were church people still upset at this?
Yep, the Southern Baptist
fucking Southern Baptists.
Yeah.
You will have to put an in there, but those dumbasses don't go. The problem with all these religious people is they don't believe in shit. They don't believe in the teachings of Christ. They don't believe in like help your brother and lift people up and help the sick and help the poor. It's like, no, they're just self-interested dumbasses. We're going to have the wrath of the Southern Baptists now, who just hate people for who they are and want them to conform to their stupid worldview and don't actually follow the teachings in which they vehemently defend.
No, it's just a structure to maintain their status quo.
Yeah. Ugh.
Anyway, the Southern Baptist Convention urged its some 16 million members to boycott the film and all Disney ventures due to the themes in the movie and the casting of Demi Moore as Esmeralda.
Why do they hate Demi Moore?
She just starred in the film Striptease as an exotic dancer.
Oh, these people on their...
She gets her boobies out.
Idiotic, prudish values.
The protests in the US also caused thousands of British parents to ban their kids from seeing the movie.
People are stupid.
I mean, this film is possibly one of Disney's darkest animated films in terms of its narrative, really mature themes such as infanticide, lust, damnation, anti-Zygonism, that's a new word I've learned. It's a persecution of Romani gypsies, genocide and sin.
There's a lot going on, and potential incest.
It got a G rating though, because Disney toed that line quite a bit.
Well, we always talk about like the things they put in the gargoyles are put into the film. This film for kids. That's the kids bit, and then the rest of the film is basically like, all right, this is for adults.
Yeah.
Like I do think this is the film that came closest to like we were talking. I think a lot last week about why they should have probably made Pocahontas as just an animated film for adults. They kind of did that here.
They kind of did that, but they pulled short of going for it again. Again, the commercial considerations and wanting it to be kid friendly pulled them up short of the line of like really going into like these really complex themes.
That's why the relationship between Esmeralda and Quasimodo couldn't happen, Ken, because obviously Quasimodo was the son of a gypsy and they could potentially be related for all they know.
We could have a Luke and Leia situation on our hands here.
So that's the reason they couldn't go farther, Ken.
Yeah, Phoebus is Han Solo in this situation.
Yeah.
On the subject of Esmeralda, we're seeing a trend of portraying the taboo of a white man falling for a woman of colour in the last two films, almost fetish-like in a way. I find that kind of unsettling.
Well, to be fair, like Frollo as a villain, like full-on fetishizes her.
Yeah. Again,
horniness. And like the scene where he has her like grabbed and just sniffs her hair, which should be, it's meant to be extremely unsettling, I think is even more unsettling given like the recent climate with that stuff and how we finally
have a reckoning with it.
Yes, we finally had like the full level of intolerance that we always should have had with things like that. But it certainly, I think it hits differently than it probably would have in the 90s, and it hits a lot harder as like
I did shudder.
A really creepy moment. And yeah, so like there's stuff in this film that I think is pushing boundaries.
We're seeing somewhat of an evolution of the trope of the magical Negro, Gar. Gar, I'm not the person to talk about this, but, you know, it's basically a person of colour who teaches a white person lessons through magic. You know, normally it's male, but, you know, we've seen Pocahontas and Esmeralda fill that role in the last two films. So I just find it interesting that two films in a row, you had those themes of, you know, the taboo between white and black people mixing in terms of couples, but also in terms of a black person teaching a white person lessons.
We clearly didn't learn anything through that, though, did we?
No.
We're like, white people are stupid and need to learn lessons from other cultures. And it's like, nah.
That's cute. But
that just didn't sink in these films.
Disney also jettisoned a lot of the main characters from the novel and added the gargoyles. I like the gargoyles.
Gargoyles are for kids.
I didn't.
That's the thing. They're like, we need something in this film for the children. We'll have some nice gargoyles. There you go.
For the longest time, Gar, I did not know that Laverne was female.
Their name is Laverne!
I know. I obviously wasn't paying attention as a kid, and I also didn't catch that the other two were called Victor and Hugo.
Yeah, that's the name of the guy who wrote the book.
What do you think of them as sidekicks?
They're for kids. I think if they weren't in the film at all, if you just took it out entirely, the film would play out exactly the same.
That's true. And they had some okay songs, but forgettable.
That's my take on, like, I was still singing Colours of the Wind after we watched this film last night, which tells me that, like, Colours of the Wind, all-time banger, and songs in this film, very forgettable.
We'll get there, Gar.
Name, what's the best song in this film?
Out There.
Sing it.
Out there, living in the sun.
With this big warbly voice, which I'm sure Nicole hates and we'll talk about later.
She did not, but she mentioned it to me. She doesn't like his voice because Tom Holtz, who does the voice, I think he did the singing voice as well, does this kind of vibrato thing.
Yeah. Like, he just does not, and like, he pointed it out to me very early in the film and probably ruined all of his songs for me. Because, yeah, he's like, out there. He cannot just hold a note. He cannot just be like, out. He can't do that. He has to have the false vibrato on, like, every single thing he does. So I get it. I get Nicole's hatred of this, and she has passed it on to me through you.
Another point here, Gar, Quasimodo and Esmeralda are killed in the original story. This was changed by Disney to give them a happy ending.
Ugh.
Again, we talked about this, like, if you really wanted to be more adult and push those boundaries, I wouldn't have killed them both off.
Kill him. Ken wants to see them burn in the fires of Paris.
I could have seen a case for killing off Quasimodo.
Especially because he gets the sad ending, because he doesn't get the girl. And she like leads him on. Like, that poor guy, he is not misreading those signs, you know? He is not seeing something that isn't there. She is leading him on and manipulating him for her own end. And poor Quasimodo. And he's just like the sad bellboy at the end. Everyone gives him a little clap. They don't throw freaking tomatoes at him anymore, which is quite nice, I guess. That's also progress for him.
Totally unearned, because they just changed their minds subtly again. Like the standoff in the battle in Pocahontas. Like, they've derided him, they've pelted rotten fruit and veg at him, and all of a sudden now he's a hero and they're all friends with him and they accept him.
Doesn't get the girl.
Yeah, but she does.
But again, there's a chance they're related.
Yeah,
so.
But she does use their relationship to get him to help her.
Yeah,
which you know, like, yeah, I my overwhelming feeling was I didn't like Phoebus that much. He was kind of, Kevin Kline plays Phoebus. He has a few.
He's a very 90s charming, slightly obnoxious lead, isn't he? But you actually see through a lot of these films.
Yeah,
like, he's basically the same character as Mel Gibson's character from Pocahontas.
Smith.
Like John Smith and him, they're the exact same
Yeah.
in terms of like slightly arrogant, slightly conceited, but charming and good-natured.
And some good lines. But, I'm not saying I think Quasimodo should have ended up with Esmeralda, but I think I would have been happy.
Quasimodo should have ended up with Phoebus, is what we're saying.
Yes.
That's the couple we want to see at the end.
Well,
of this
they
film.
did have a bit of an odd couple scenario where they're trying to save Esmeralda and save the Court of Miracles. And I did sense a sexual tension there.
They should have realized they love each other, and Esmeralda should have been, who's leading both of them on, she should have been left out in the cold.
It may not surprise you that fans of Victor Hugo's novel were disappointed with all the changes that Disney made to the book story.
You mean these fans of this very adult book were not happy that they turned it into children's entertainment? Oh, I'm baffled and confounded.
Arnaud Latier, maybe, a leading scholar on Hugo, accused...
You did French. You have no excuse for not being able to say French names. You learned French for 8 years.
I haven't spoken French in about 10 years.
You did the frickin' Beauty and the Beast intro in French, didn't you?
Yeah, that was a struggle.
Yeah.
Anyway, he accused Disney of simplifying editing and censoring the novel.
Wow. They simplified how many pages is frickin'...
in numerous aspects, including the personalities of the characters. In his review of the film, he later wrote that the animators don't have enough confidence in their own emotional feeling, and the film falls back on cliches.
Shock of all. That's, again, this kind of criticism I find just utterly stupid. That this frickin' 940-page, 3-volume book is not, has been distilled down to children's entertainment, and somehow all the complexity of those 940 3-volume pages have been lost in this translation from like epic novel to children's entertainment. Oh, how did that happen?
I think you've referenced this before, Gar. Those two things can exist exclusively.
Yes.
It can be a fun children's movie that gives them a little bit of the dose of the medicine without being too harsh and teaches the themes and the morals, and the novel still exists for people who want to enjoy that.
Yeah, and children are never going to read that 940-page French book. Come on!
Descendants of Hugo bashed Disney in an open letter to Libération in the newspaper for their ancestor getting no mention on the advertisement posters and describing the film as vulgar commercialization by unscrupulous salesmen.
Sure.
Yeah, so...
Wasn't the book not out of copyright at that stage?
It's...
Published in English in 1833. When did Victor Hugo die? That's the important question. Victor Hugo died in 1855 plus... it would have been, it's well out of copyright. Never mind. So yeah, they didn't get the rights to it. So they just like, who wants to do Hunchback?
Demi Moore as Esmeralda. Another example of celebrity casting, but I think she does admirable job here.
She's fine.
And a good performance. She gets across the free-spirited and sassy nature of Esmeralda.
The only performance I really like in this film is Frollo's.
Yes.
Who is sinister and menacing and a very good villain.
By Tony J.
Yeah.
Who's since passed on, but I think he does the singing voice as well.
He does. I think all the people still do their singing voice in this, don't they?
Yeah. And Demi Moore does a pretty good song in this film.
I don't remember it.
We'll talk about it in a minute. I have a few more notes here on the story. Quasimodo is so thirsty. He's really desperate to have Esmeralda like him and stay in the church forever. But again, as we talked about, he
helps her escape.
He gets over it. He helps her escape, but at the same time, she leans into that to kind of
manipulate him. Uses his feelings because she's the first girl that he's ever probably seen.
Yeah. So
as a man who's lived in a bell tower his entire life,
of course he loves her. But Phoebus fell in love with her in one glance, so he claimed her.
Yeah.
The love triangle here, I don't find it terribly successful.
Like all of this film, it's fine.
Yeah, it's a plot
device. I have no takes about this film. That's my problem. That's the reason I think this film is fun. I was like, all right, sitting down to talk about a Hunchback of Notre Dame. What do I have to say? It's like Frollo's horniness, of course. And then I'm out. That's all I have left to say about this film, other than Frollo's horniness.
Do you think if he just beat one off, none of this would have happened?
Yeah, just jerk off, bang one out. Everything is fine. He wouldn't have burned the city down.
Gar, we have a classic climactic siege here, which again with 3D looks really great, and there's a really cool visual of like molten metal, I think, pouring from the turrets of Notre Dame. That's a cool visual.
And probably the most interesting use of the gargoyles, very similar to the climactic scene in Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, I wrote that here in my notes. The action is very similar, but the sequence is a lot of fun, but it also has some very striking visuals.
Yeah, where the characters came to life are all defending their home. It's the same thing. This film is Beauty and the Beast, except worse.
And also,
this film is Beauty and the Beast, except worse.
Yeah, it has elements of The Lion King as well, because Judge Frollo literally couldn't resist revealing that he killed Quasimodo's mother before promptly plunging to his doom.
Yep.
So it ticks all those Disney boxes.
Classic plunge to the doom death as well.
So I think that I think you hit the nail on the head, Gar. Like from a story point of view, there's nothing really new here.
No.
And
horniness.
Maybe horniness isn't kind of new.
That's new.
Yeah. So there we go. Moving on to the music. This is the second movie in a row to contain songs from the new, at the time, writing partnership of Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz. We have the first...
This Schwartz guy, he's mediocre.
Yeah, we had the first ever male I Want song in this film, Out There, sung by Quasimodo.
Is it the first ever?
I think so.
One Jump Ahead? That's not really it. Is that an I Want song?
Not really. The I Want song was...
I guess, yeah, they took that out. Yeah,
they cut that from the movie.
Yeah. The Schwartz, he's got nothing on Ashman, Ken.
Yeah. I think Out There is a great song. I really like it. It gives me the feels. Topsy Turvy Day is a really great time as well. It reminds me of Be Our Guest.
Mediocre.
Okay, Gar. What else have I got for you? I completely wiped God Help the Outcasts from my memory. It's a nice little song.
I don't even know what song that is.
It's where she sings in the church after she gets Sanctuary.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for me, I only really remember Out There, Topsy Turvy Day, and Hellfire, despite watching this movie regularly. So a lot of these songs slip my mind. Speaking of Hellfire, though, I think it's up there with one of the best Disney villain songs in my book. The whole sequence is very striking and memorable.
In the shadows that are haunting him and the reflection of his inner demons. It's all very good stuff.
And the judge, he's being judged by all these hooded men.
Yes. And he just wants to be horny. He just wants to be horny and free. And all these people are judging him and they're ruining his life.
And he reveals his plan. He's basically, she can either love me or I'll kill her.
Yes.
Which is actually a classic Disney theme. It's like, look, you have no choice in this. You're going to marry me or I will kill you.
Yes. Which is certainly a way to find love. Yeah. Again, ripped straight out of Beauty and the Beast.
But, Gar, none of these songs were nominated for an Oscar.
For good reason. They're all mediocre.
Gar, this was a streak going all the way back to...
Little Mermaid.
The Little Mermaid. So, well, with the exception of Rescuers Down Under, which is a weird detour on
Doesn't count. That doesn't even have songs, though.
No. So
it might. I don't even remember.
No, it has no songs.
So there you go.
It's a weird detour on the Disney Renaissance.
It's like a whole... It's just a holdover from the 80s that's still there.
Yeah, but again, I think the top three songs are very strong. I would have thought they would have been nominated, and these are the songs I most remember, and this is what I most remember from the movie in general. But, Gary, you're not sold.
No, I think it's fine. It's all fine. I don't love any of it. I don't love any of the characters. I don't love any of the songs. I think the animation looks pretty good, but it's nothing like super memorable or special, which is probably a symptom of what you mentioned earlier of it all just having like a samey feel to it. It's fine.
In terms of the legacy of this film, The Hunchback of Notre Dame received Academy Award and Golden Globe nominations for its score, but was the first Disney movie in some time, as we said, not to receive a top award for music. No Best Song nominations, which I think it really surprised me. I think Hellfire could have been a contender.
Hellfire is not its own song, though, is it?
Yeah, it is.
I'm pretty sure on the Spotify playlist, Ken, it's tied to a Quasimodo song that comes before it.
Okay.
It's a double song.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he sings about his longing.
So I'm pretty sure that's maybe the Quasimodo section drags the Hellfire section down.
Yeah, Out There seems like it's tailor-made for an Oscar nomination as well.
It's too samey, though. It's like Belle, but worse. Again, I've come to my conclusion now. It's just the worst version of Beauty and the Beast.
You're really trashing my childhood here.
I am. It's like, this is a film that you have a lot of fondness for, and I'm sure the fondness is justified in your brain, Ken. But me watching it for the first time in the year 2020, I think it's fine. Go on, tell me about your fondness. You take us home. Get my negativity out of here.
I'll just tell you a couple more things, Gar. A darker, more gothic stage adaptation of the film was produced by Walt Disney. Theatrical, mostly ran in Germany and smaller US markets, so it's never really made it.
So it probably just didn't succeed. That was probably like the test run. They were like, nah.
A direct-to-video sequel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, was released in 2002, in which he does get the girl.
Yeah,
so
he finds a different girl. Is Esmeralda in that one too?
Probably not. Demi Moore is too expensive.
That's true.
Garrett, to answer your question, a live-action adaptation is in the works with Josh Gad, possibly attached to play Quasimodo. He is a producer on the film. The film will borrow from both the animated film and Victor Hugo's novel, so should be more serious in tone. And maybe they might kill him off this time. To bring things home, as you said, I still have a soft spot for this film, so maybe I'm a bit biased in my assessment of it. I think that it has some very memorable songs. I think it has some nice performances by the lead cast, especially Tom Hulce. You know, you get the sense of his hesitation and you get the sense of his, discovery of this outside world and his longing for wanting to be accepted. I think that it has storytelling problems. It's uneven at times and it kind of rushes to a conclusion where it doesn't feel that earned, where Quasimodo is suddenly accepted. I didn't buy that.
Feels derivative of other works.
The animation, as I said, I think it's the best implementation of 3D. I think we agree on that. But, and it looks nice because it has all the outlines look great, the crowd scenes look fantastic. It all looks great, but I think as we're moving forward, Hercules we'll see is a completely different different style, and I like to see that in my animated films as well. I like to see when they make a stylistic choice for the aesthetic of the film, rather than just in the past they made it for like budget reasons and they made it for time reasons, you know.
It probably doesn't help that a large amount of this film is set in a cathedral.
Yeah.
Which there's only so much you can do. It's either in the cathedral or in the courtyard outside the cathedral. And that's where, like, legitimately 95% of this film plays out. So maybe that's why.
Yeah.
It's one boring looking building. It's actually quite a nice looking building.
Oh, it looks wonderful from the outside, but like, yeah, there's not much like we had in the previous films. We had, you know, the wilds of Virginia, you know, early settlers in America.
Even though you hated how that film looked too.
We had the African savannah. No, I agree, Gar. When it looked great, but they didn't go far enough, is what I think.
All right.
But I think I'll always come back to the Hunchback of Notre Dame because I have a soft spot for it, and so does Nicole. It was one of her favourites when she was a kid. But I can agree that it's not the best in the Disney canon.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go.
So you also relate to the Festival of Fools, don't you?
Couldn't help yourself, could you?
No. Would you like to see a note I actually wrote down? My second note, read it aloud.
Festival of Fools, call Ken a fool. Of course. Of course. All right, bell ringers, that's nearly all they wrote for another week. Magic by Design's resident musical expert Nicole is coming up in just a few moments with an epic cover of one of the Hunchback of Notre Dame's most famous songs. It's always a treat, so be sure to stay tuned for that at the end of the show. You can find new episodes of Magic by Design every Monday, where all magical podcasts are downloaded. Check out our website at magicbydesign.buzzsprout.com to find a full list of podcast providers. There, you'll also find all our previous episodes if you're catching up, or if you feel like revisiting an old favourite, you know. So, Gar, we recently joined Amazon, iHeartRadio, we're everywhere.
Yeah, wherever you can find podcasts. I'll even, if you want me to come around to your house and do a dramatic reading of this right in front of you, I'll just do it.
Are you going to play me as well?
Yeah.
Do me.
It'll be the most difficult role.
Do your Ken impression.
I'm dumb. Look at me. I like Quasimodo.
You hurt me.
Got him.
So deep. Magic by Design is also on your favourite social media platforms. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Magic by Design Pod, on Twitter at Magic Design Pod, and on Instagram at Magic by Design Pod. If you're enjoying our Disney discussions and want to support the show, please do consider giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice, share the podcast on your socials, or even recommend to a fellow Disney fan. If you don't give us a 5-star review, we will lock you in a bell tower for the rest of your natural born days, where your only friends will be gargoyles and pigeons. Okay, if you watch this film, think of your 5-star review as your repressed horniness. Yes.
And think of giving it as setting Paris on fire. And that's the metaphor here.
Just let it out.
Yeah.
Let it free before you burn Paris down. We will be back next week at the same time, same place for our last show of 2020, a review of Disney's 35th animated feature Hercules. But until then, stay safe and remember, life's not a spectator sport. If watching is all you're going to do, then you're going to watch your life go by without you.
You're a gargoyle.
You're a gargoyle. You're literally a gargoyle.
Yeah.
Gargoyle.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You steamrolled me putting you down, so I will let you just end the podcast.
Just give me that. Give me that before the end of 2020. Now then, Nicole is back with yet another Disney banger. This week she's taking on God Help the Outcasts from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Thanks for listening and have a Merry Christmas. Or if Christmas is not your bag, have a nice December 25th for no reason in particular.
Yeah. Krampus.
Take it away, Nicole.
Hello there, Disney friends. It's me, your musical correspondent, Nicole, coming to you live from my bedroom. This week, we're sounding the bells with the Hunchback of Notre Dame. Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz teamed up again for this movie, attracted to the theme of discrimination. Again, Menken wrote the score for the movie, with many musical motifs carrying through the film score, weaving in and out of the musical numbers, representing a character, emotion, location, or idea. For instance, we often hear the cathedral motif throughout the film, which is connected to Notre Dame. It's heard when Frollo tries to kill Quasi by dumping him in a well outside the cathedral, and it's also heard when Clopin mentions the bells of Notre Dame. Very different versions of the theme, but based on the same motif. Though the music, in my opinion, is really beautiful, textured and clever, with its good versus evil representation, the soundtrack did not win any awards. Though out there was a song we all remember, the one that hit me right in the feels when I was a kid was God Bless the Outcasts, sung by Esmeralda and Chorus. I hope you enjoy it. God help the outcasts, hungry from birth. Show them the mercy they don't find on earth. God help my people, we look to you still. God help the outcast, ask for glory to shine on my name. I ask for love I can possess. I ask for God and His angels to bless me. I ask for nothing. I can get by. But I know so many less lucky than I. Please help my people, the poor and downtrodden. I thought we all were children of God. God help the outcasts, children